And I'll be quoting from page 730. Oh no, I think I kept this. This was the purpose, the sanction, and being. No, this is very beautiful. I kept it to make a separate video on it. Okay, so I'll be quoting from page 742. Oh no, I kept this too because it's so nice. Let's try page 743. I saw them reaching into my soul, just as they reach into Mulligan's pocket, reaching to expropriate the value of my person, just as they reach to expropriate his wealth. I saw the impertinent malice of mediocrity boastfully holding up its own emptiness as an abyss to be filled by the bodies of its betters. I saw them seeking, just as they seek to feed on Mulligan's money, to feed on those hours when I wrote my music and on that which made me write it, seeking to gnaw their way to self-esteem by extorting from me the admission that they were the goal of my music, so that precisely by reason of my achievement, it would not be they who'd acknowledge my value, but I who would bow to theirs. It was that night that I took the oath never to let them hear another note of mine. So this is a composer, and this composer also left the world, and now he too lives in that special place, Gold's Gouge. I think the place was called like that, if I'm not mistaken. And this is about how emptiness, when people choose emptiness as their premise and as their identity, how emptiness tries to devour everything. Like, if I'm empty and you create something, I try to devour not only your creation but also yourself. I think that you owe me everything, and the fact that I listen to your music and I applaud you as a parasite, as the ambassador of emptiness and suffering, I would think that as you are better, you owe me because I'm not better. You owe me your music, you owe me your time, you owe me everything. This is how the parasites think. And this is how they try to create or form their societies, their economy, which is based on inferiority, on commonness, like the common man, yeah? The classes, the working class, or the country, or the church, any form of collectivism. Hello, Annette. Nice to see you, Annette. Where are you joining me from? And do you know anything about Ayn Rand and her philosophy and the book Atlas Shrugged? So this is how empty people and people who choose emptiness and suffering as their guides think and perceive others. Like, if you are richer, if you are more talented, if you are more successful, then you owe me. This is the twistedness, the immorality, the ugliness of altruism and collectivism. Of course, they do not put it in such terms, yeah? But this is how their minds think. And this is why they ostracize and attack rich people, successful people, and also countries. Like, if a country is very free and open-minded and successful, they attack that country. Like Israel, for instance, yeah? Funny how people cancel and boycott and try to change something in their secular and free countries when it comes to LGBT rights or women's rights, which is good. If there are threats, you should respond to them. But how those same people go on vacation to places where, let's say, homosexuality is criminalized, where women have no right to leave the house without the accompaniment of their husbands, and how they do not support other like free open societies like Israel. Yeah, of course, Israel has its own challenges and problems, but you could not compare it to Palestine, the states and the societies. In one place you get executed as an LGBT person. In the other place, they have no problem with you being gay or an ethnic minority, a woman, etc. Right. Now, on the same page, I observed that in all the discussions that preceded the enslavement of medicine, men discussed everything except the desires of the doctors. Men considered only the welfare of the patients, with no thought for those who were to provide it. That a doctor should have any right, desire, or choice in the matter was regarded as irrelevant selfishness. His is not to choose, they said, only to serve. That a man who's willing to work under compulsion is too dangerous a brute to entrust with a job in the stockyards never occurred to those who proposed to help the sick by making life impossible for the healthy. I have often wondered at the smugness with which people assert their right to enslave me, to control my work, to force my will, to violate my conscience, to stifle my mind. Yet what is it that they expect to depend on when they lie on an operating table under my hands? Their moral code has taught them to believe that it is safe to rely on the virtue of their victims. Well, that is the virtue I have withdrawn. Let them discover the kind of doctors that their system will now produce. This is another man, a doctor, who left the collectivist society and joined the what's the word? Le grève in French, or la grève. I don't even remember it's masculine or feminine. La grève. I think it's feminine. Strike. For a long time, when Ayn Rand was working on the book, the name of the book in her mind was The Strike, So, and then she decided, actually someone helped her, I don't remember whether it was her husband, to choose this name, Atlas Shrugged. So these people, the doctor, the banker, are those atlases that have decided to shrug off all the altruism, all the collectivism, all the irrationality off their shoulders and live as free, reasonable, and independent human beings. And they left the societies or the society that was mistreating them, and they went to God's Gauge, a special utopia. Thumbs up YouTube and tap on the screen TikTok, and let me know where you guys are joining me from. Okay. Page 745. I quit, said Quentin Daniels, because if there are degrees of damnation, the scientist who places his mind in the service of brute force is the longest range murderer on Earth. So this is interesting, and this is profound if you analyze and understand what you are speaking of. Hello, Buyan. Yeah, your mind is only about DDs and his parties. Well, not interesting at all. So a scientist who gives his mind to the service of a collective is doing a big disservice to his own society, other societies. Like, think of a Russian scientist, for instance, who serves Putin. Thank you, Light. Thank you for the likes. Thanks a lot. I appreciate that. So they may think that they are patriots. It's patriotic, and it could be patriotic, but to serve the given government. But what if you are in South Korea, you are in Russia, you are in a dictatorship, which is going to use your mind to oppress freedom in that society, to oppress you and your family members, and to attack its neighbors. That's, even if you call it patriotism, that's very blind, that's very dangerous, and that scientist, based on the moral code of a free and reasonable human being, is not doing a moral thing, because his inventions would be used against others. Just like, think of scientists in Nazi Germany, like their inventions were used to destroy others, right? And to enslave countless individuals and groups of individuals, like Jews, gypsies, LGBT people, political opposition, and so on. And the dissidents, the German dissidents, etc. Next, page 748. When the creed of self-immolation has run for once its undisguised course, when men find no victims ready to obstruct the path of justice and to deflect the fall of retribution on themselves, when preachers of self-sacrifice discover that those who are willing to practice it have nothing to sacrifice, and those who have are not willing any longer, when men see that neither their hearts nor their muscles can save them, but the mind they damned is not there to answer their screams for help, when they collapse as they must, as men without mind, when they have no pretense of authority left, no remnant of law, no trace of morality, no hope, no food, and no way to obtain it, when they collapse and the road is clear, then we'll come back to rebuild the world. So these atlases, these free thinkers, live in this community, and they refuse to serve the parasites, the destroyers, the looters, and the moochers. So there are interesting formulations in this passage. So let me take a few of them. So, when men find no victims ready to obstruct the path of justice and to deflect the fall of retribution on themselves. So, sometimes victims are ready to obstruct the path of justice and deflect the fall of retribution on themselves. For instance, you are a victim of something, but then your family, the family of the perpetrator, may approach you and tell you, oh, please forgive this man or this perpetrator, he's such a nice guy or girl, and he's the provider of his family, or we will pay for everything, please, 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 don't go to court, don't complain. Then you become the victim who is obstructing the justice. And oftentimes you pay for your behavior in a bad way. I know a girl in Armenia who was hit by a car, and the footage of that tragedy is actually available. She got it from the police. She just was thrown into the air. She whirled inside in the air and then fell, like lots of bones broken, and it was horrible. Fortunately, almost by miracle, she survived, and she did exactly this thing. She hearkened unto the voices of the perpetrators, two friends one of whom was drunk and driving in such a state. She did not go to court. They paid for a few things and then they stopped paying her. So it's not just, yes, it is sad, but if you obstruct justice, then justice is destroyed. Justice cannot serve you. And now she doesn't want to go to police or courts because she's like, well, they gave me some money, and also what will the judge say? What will the police say? They may think that I'm a gold digger. So she has those doubts, and she followed the path of mercy and emotions instead of logic and reason. And now, unfortunately, she has to pay for that. She pays for her recovery out of her own pocket now. And that's not just. And this is why logic and reason and law are way more preferable than any other things, you know. A reminder, thumbs up on YouTube and tap on the screen on TikTok, okay? Likes, comments, donations, those things are welcome. I'm reading quotes from Atlas Shrugged for you guys, okay? A work by Ayn Rand, a very interesting lady. She was born in Tsarist Russia. She lived under communists, and under Stalin, she left the USSR and immigrated into the United States. And here she created her own name, her own fortune, her own philosophy. She has fiction books as well as non-fiction books. She created the philosophy of Objectivism, a very interesting and smart lady. And her works are full of wisdom. Another part from this passage. Yeah, and that sometimes as a victim you can deflect the fall of retribution on yourself. Like it's my fault, or like blaming yourself, or not going after the perpetrator and suffering because of that, you know. And she was name called by the father of that perpetrator, you know. So crazy. No, Vladimir, I'm not planning on hanging the flag of Armenia. I'm not. Why would I be interested in doing that? Okay, next. When the preachers of self-sacrifice discover that those who are willing to practice it have nothing to sacrifice. So, yes, imagine, like, mostly communism and socialism is liked by poor people, right? Mostly those who speak of sharing have nothing to share, or do not want to share their stuff. Like they are not willing to give their smartphone, their extra pair of shoes, buy an extra cup of coffee for a stranger, but then they speak of the crucial importance of taxing the rich and not allowing people to get rich beyond some threshold, etc. So often people are very hypocritical, like people who speak of taking someone else's property or money, or spreading some collectivist, establishing some collectivist form of governance, right-wing collectivism or left-wing collectivism. They are very hypocritical, they have double standards, and they want to achieve their goals by using and abusing others, you know. And patriotism, nationalism work very similarly. Like a lot of Armenians, for instance, especially those who live abroad, like in Glendale, in Los Angeles, in the US, in other countries, They're like, oh, Armenia needs to get back its lands. Like, let's get back Artsakh or Nagorno-Karabakh. Let's get back Kars or some territories from Turkey, from Georgia, from Iran, blah, blah, blah. And they live outside of Armenia, and they are not going to serve in the army. They're not going to take weapons and fight. So this is also very hypocritical. So this type of hypocrisy exists not only in the left wing but also in the right wing, politically speaking. Okay. Now, do we have commentaries on TikTok? No. No additional commentaries on TikTok. So, when men see that neither their hearts nor their muscles can save them, but the mind they damned is not there to answer their screams for help. This is also an interesting phenomenon. The dictator of Belarus, Lukashenko, imported around 25,000 Pakistanis because there is not enough workforce in the Republic of Belarus, because people are leaving that country. Russia is in a similar situation. The Republic of Armenia was, and it seems that still there is a lot of emigration from the Republic of Armenia. So collectivist countries that proclaim power, force, like physical power, as their guiding value, pay for that. People of reason, people of ability, choose to leave those societies and find themselves and build lives for themselves in free societies where they are not forced into stuff, where their identities and their abilities are valued and respected. So when you choose, there is this interesting formula in Armenian. They say "Uzhnetsanom iravunk." That's a phrase coined by an Armenian nationalist figure who was also a Nazi collaborationist, Karagin Najde. In English, the equivalent would be might makes right. Like if you have might, physical power, then you create your own rights, and you may do whatever you will. As long as you have the strength, the physical power, you can justify it and call it your right. Of course, this is hypocrisy, and things don't work this way in real life. I suspect that one of the reasons why Russia is interested in expanding all the time is that their own population is in decline, and data shows that as well. Like the birth rates are very low, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of suicide, a lot of emigration from Russia. So I think they were hoping to swallow and integrate millions of Ukrainians into their prison, the prison which is called Russia. And that was one of their motivations. And we see that tens of thousands of Ukrainian children were abducted, right? And they are brought up in some things that we could compare to concentration camps, prisons for them. Yeah, that's horrible. But my guess is Russia is not, it's not about territory, because Russia has plenty of territory. And with modern technologies, you can, make everything thrive. Wherever you have like long winters, you can create, what are these things called? like the glass, the buildings made of glass where you grow stuff. Yeah, if anyone knows the name in English, help me out, guys. So when you have long winters and you cannot take care of your agriculture, you can create those buildings, yeah, with renewable energy, with reason, you can solve all your problems. So for Russia, it's not really about territories. They also have millions and millions of inhabitants, um, although, yeah, in terms of the population, it's declining, but this decline is global for a lot of countries. So, from the perspective of their leadership, maybe it was also about population, because they needed healthy population, not those, alcoholics and drug addicts, of which Russia is full. Uh, in Russian, you have this term "glubinka." It's like the villages and the towns, like the most of the country outside of Moscow and St. Petersburg, mostly. So people live in those conditions. It's very common for them, for teenagers to start smoking and abusing substances when they are very, very young. So, yeah. And you discover that a reason is leaving you and you find yourself impotent. You discover that you're not able to solve your problems through coercion and physical force. Okay, page 757. Even John grants me that in our age, I had the moral right to choose the course I've chosen. I'm doing just what he is doing, only in my own way. He is withdrawing man's spirit from the looters. I'm withdrawing the products of man's spirit. He is depriving them of reason. I'm depriving them of wealth. He's draining the soul of the world. I'm draining its body. He is the lesson they have to learn. Only I'm impatient, and I am hastening their scholastic progress. But like John, I'm simply complying with their moral code and refusing to grant them a double standard at my expense, or at Reardon's expense, or at yours. If my fellow men believe that the force of the combined tonnage of their muscles is a practical means to rule me, let them learn the outcome of a contest in which there's nothing but brute force on one side and force ruled by a mind on the other. This is also interesting, and this makes me think of revolutions, the French revolutions. At some point, everything was decided on based on physical strength, like numbers and people hitting the streets. And this seems, what should I call it? This seems wrong, It means that any group of men, not even the majority, but this is, in Greek, they have a word, ochlos, like the mob. So there is demos, the more educated and wealthier part of the society, and there is ochlos, the mob. So there's democracy and there's ochlocracy. So, and that can cause a lot of trouble and create a lot of undesired outcomes for societies who go that way. Yeah, this is, the issue of majority rule is a very interesting one. Does the majority have the right to everything? Is something right because it is decided on by the majority? Mm-mm. Not really. Often majorities are conservative, um, backward, they want to keep uh, the so-called traditions, which can be unjust, which can be harmful, like marrying young girls in some Muslim societies as young as like 13, 12 or younger, yeah. Or hating on some minorities like Jews, etc., etc. So the rule of the muscle and the rule of the mob are very ugly and dangerous things, you know. And as societies progress, they learn to abstain from it. And probably it's one of the tests of the society. If they withstand, if their institutions withstand to the rule of the brutes, then there is a chance for that society. If they don't, then that society is doomed to corruption and destruction. Yeah, this makes me think of Armenia when the nationalists, the religious fanatics try to bring the darkness of the 90s and early 2000s back and turn Armenia into a lamentable place full of corruption. And I'm happy to see that often they fail, like they make their protests and they try to organize coup in Armenia and overthrow the government, but so far they are failing and it's good. And when mobs attack government buildings, when mobs based on the calls of their leaders, political leaders, religious leaders, try to lynch the opposition representatives or overthrow newly elected governments or fairly, justly elected governments. When they fail, then that's a good sign. It means that the given society has some immunity. And this immunity must remain if that society wants to grow and remain attractive, free, and have those vital strength, the strength to live as a free country, free from at least some forms of corruption. Okay, let's see if we can find someone interesting on TikTok and talk about philosophy, for instance. Okay, this person says no. Let's try this other one. Oh, hi guys. Does anyone speak English here? No. A little bit. Okay, it's just 4 of them. They are somewhere in Asia. And it seems like we couldn't talk about philosophy with them. Mm-mm. No, the rest are some names in some foreign languages. I'm seriously considering an alternative to TikTok. I wonder if I can invite guests on YouTube when I go live on YouTube. I wonder if technically that is possible. Or Twitch. Yeah, YouTube with its policies, with its censorship, it's not that attractive. The growth is so slow that I'm demotivated, to be honest. All right, that will be it for today. Or shall I read another passage? Okay, from page 759. I'll read this one too. How can she live through 11 months of thinking that you at any moment might be? She did not finish. He was smiling, but she saw the enormous solemnity of that which he and his wife had needed to earn their right to this kind of smile. She can live through it, Miss Taggart, because we do not hold the belief that this earth is a realm of misery where man is doomed to destruction. We do not think that tragedy is our natural fate, and we do not live in chronic dread of disaster. Oh. We do not expect disaster until we have specific reason to expect it, and when we encounter it, we are free to fight it. It is not happiness but suffering that we consider unnatural. It is not success but calamity that we regard as the abnormal exception in human life. So beautiful! Oh, I love objectivism. I love objectivism because of these lines. It's just so beautiful. A lot of philosophies and religions teach you to live in that dread, that chronic dread, that fear of calamity. Like if we take Christianity, so original sin, you are born and you're already guilty, you're already bad, you are denigrated, you are attacked for the simple fact of being human. And for the simple fact of allegedly disobeying the higher authority. So it's about authority, But then you have this almighty, all-knowing, all-loving God that banishes his children when they disobey him, like Adam and Eve, organizing deluge. What's the more regular English word? When everything is drowned, and well, practically killing off an entire race. Speak genocide, you condemn genocides, but you are fine with that story of a world genocide where only one family was left alive. Like the scale of that, crime, isn't it worrying? So, and then the promise of yet another calamity, like you have Sodom and Gomorrah, which were destroyed according to the story by fire, and you have I think it's Revelations or some other books in the New Testament where you have promises of more disasters and stuff. So, like, what will happen to your brain when you worship such a tyrant in the sky? Or take the story of the Egyptians and the murder of the firstborns of Egypt. Wow, is that justice? Is that acceptable? There are so many horrible stories like that. Or there's this story in the Old Testament, and ask ChatGPT or Google, okay? You can find the sources, the codes. This crazy story when 40 plus children were murdered by 2 bears, and those bears were sent by God. And the kids were murdered for laughing at a prophet or someone, And believers, they justify all these actions. They say, oh, it is God, or well, they were killed because they were corrupted. So you mean it's okay to kill people who are corrupted based on your worldviews and ideology? It's okay to kill children because they were taunting a prophet? Wow. No, so imagine the state of the mind of someone who believes in all of this, who believes an all-powerful God punished humans with deluge, with fire from sky, with sending wild bears, with killing the firstborns of all family members of an entire country. So this all-powerful God can unleash his wrath upon you anytime. So you live in a chronic fear of disaster because of your religion, because of your beliefs, you know. Religion is a huge part of it, you know. And political leaders, dictators, they love this. They want to create this sense of danger and disaster for their subjects too. This is why they like religion, and this is why they make external enemies. They make wars like Russia against Ukraine, which was unimaginable, you know. No one would imagine 15 or 18 years ago that Russians and Ukrainians could war against each other. That's insane. That is still insane, but dictators need external enemies. They need to create more suffering. They need to create disasters. They need to be like the biblical God, all powerful and sending punishment against his subjects. And this turns you into a creep. You know, you become mentally disabled because you live in this state of constant fear. You terrorize yourself. This is emotional and mental terror, you know, based on your religious worldviews, based on your political worldviews. You terrorize yourself. Armenians, for instance, a lot of them live in constant fear of being invaded by Azerbaijanis and Turks, not militarily speaking, but through commerce and tourism. I had a crazy story with my family when my sister thought that the guests whom I invited into my paternal house were Azerbaijanis, which is crazy because Azerbaijanis don't walk freely in Yerevan, but their brains are so twisted that they think it's the opposite. They live in constant fear. Okay, now Turks will buy everything and Armenia will become a province of Turkey, for instance. And it's a desire, you know. Some forms of fear are these twisted desires. You know, this is your fear, this is your desire. So because your religion and your society, who is religious often, tell you that a disaster is imminent. Bad things happened in the past, and bad things are going to happen in the future. And you turn your life into a waiting room in which you wait for the next disaster, in which you make self-fulfilling prophecies about failure and disaster. And you grow your inner saboteur, which doesn't allow you to thrive and to live freely as a creative, reasonable, beautiful human being. You turn yourself in a fearful goblin who is worried like that creature Gollum from the Lord of the Rings, who was only worried about losing his ring and then finding it. You destroy your potential, you destroy your reason, and you choose fear, conservatism, inferior level of being and experiencing, and you become a black hole who is about destruction, who is about expecting bad things to happen, who is about damning themselves and this planet. The alternative is freedom, reason, beauty. You can retrain your thinking, and I'm doing this to myself, by the way. I have seen my own inner saboteur, which was grown in me by my father, by my society, by my religious grandmothers, and I'm working on improving, you know, on changing, rewriting all of that software, mental software and programming. So change is possible. Subscribe, Like, comment, share, become part of the New Intellectuals, which is a movement that I'm establishing on this planet to unite reasonable, free, and creative people and to create beautiful stuff together.